What's up, world? This is Wilson coming at you at the table, sitting with some amazing gentlemen. The Shepherds, like always. I'm with Cam.
Yo.
JP.
Hey, guys.
And O.
What's up?
And welcome to the movement. Today is going to be talking about vulnerability. And I know this is most guys' weakness of trying to be vulnerable, let the walls down, let people in. And vulnerability in general is a state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed either physically or emotionally. And I know a lot of those guys have challenges with being emotional or being in tune with their emotions. And for me, being vulnerable is not an easy thing to do. It means you break down the walls that protect you and allow people in. This could mean several things. But most importantly, being your true self by letting people see you for who you really are. So many people out there live a fake life, and behind closed doors, they let their guard down and become vulnerable. Why do you act one way with one person and a different way with another? I believe fear causes this because you want to be accepted. So you act one way around one crowd because they are a certain way, and then you act another way around another crowd, and you're like a chameleon. Do you really truly know yourself? And if you don't, you should search and find out what you're all about. That way you can be your true self. And if those people who you hang out with can't accept you for who you really are, you need to find a new group. Guys are known to be callous, hard as a rock, void of emotion, and have been taught that how a man is supposed to be. You know, most older generation, they're like, yeah, you boys don't cry. You don't have any emotion. Don't cry. You know, and men don't cry, and they don't show emotion. And if they do, it's a weakness, or they feel like you're weak individual for letting those emotions out. In all actuality, that's false. The men who are in tune with their emotions, emotional side, and share what they feel are truly stronger than those who bottle it all up. Because by bottling it all up, eventually you will explode, and that causes it to be even worse in those moments, and especially bad timing most cases. Small little things will set you off, and you just, all of it stacked up, and then just explodes. So I want to talk about vulnerability from the shepherd's point of view. I've kind of elaborated on my side of things, like how I think, but I want you guys to kind of discuss what vulnerability means to you. If you struggle with it, stop, and so on and so forth. So go ahead.
JP's making me feel very vulnerable right now.
Right. That's why I said stop.
Mainly because he's bigger than me, and I think he could.
Oh, you need to put that video in so everybody sees what he's doing.
I gave him that shoulder squeeze. It's my turn.
Squeeze.
Why do you?
But that was
always
almost
get to
a little
talk
too
first?
intimate, though.
Why do you always get to talk first?
We're talking about vulnerability, and you're like caressing my shoulder.
He's getting into it. He's getting into it.
Well, I can tell you that
Weird.
shoulder's happier than that one.
Deep tissue massage.
So you're talking about this, and I'm glad we are. Like, I'm glad we've finally decided to tackle this because, you know, we are very much in a PC pussified society right now, and I think it's important to help determine the differences between being vulnerable and being a little PC bitch.
Right.
If I can I don't know how to be more eloquent about that.
That was pretty eloquent. I
thought it was pretty good.
Pretty good.
You articulated that very well.
Okay, thank you. I feel good about myself, and thanks for building my self-image.
Absolutely.
But
It's not like you need it.
Should be able to
well,
handle
no, I
your
mean, I'm
social
pretty
media
solid,
now.
but yeah, exactly. But it's important, you know, and I think about Sean Whalen, who we've talked about a lot on here, and I love listening to that guy. And you know, one of the things that he's really, I mean, honestly, following him and listening to his stuff has helped me kind of get more in tune with some vulnerability and being open to being. I think it becomes a control of your emotions. You know, it's not like. There is an old school mentality, and I know we talk a lot about bringing about the old school gentleman, and 99.9% of that stuff is positive. And I think there is a negative side of that, which is that whether it was true or not true, there's certainly a stereotype for old school gentlemen to not have emotion. Right. You know, to be just, you know, emotionless. We don't cry, we don't do anything, we don't show, we don't smile, we don't do anything. You know. And that's not good. I mean, like you said, it's gonna build up. It's gonna come out at some point. It's probably not gonna be productive or constructive when it does. Right. You know. So I think I don't think you should be a babbling, crying idiot. You know, I don't think everything should make you emotional in the sense of weeping. But I think that if you don't cry about something, I don't know how much of a real man you are. Like, there's got to be something that makes you tear up. I'll be honest with you, man. Last episode, we were talking about some pretty intense stuff with young people and suicide, and it makes me. I'm just talking about it now, man. Like, it just makes me feel eerie inside, and like it does get me emotional. And like, if you don't feel that, something's wrong. Like, if you're cold to that, something's wrong, and you need to allow yourself to open up and be more vulnerable to those feelings. Now, you need to be able to control it, because if your feelings control you, that's a whole nother can of worms that you're opening up. That's not going to be good either. So.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'll be totally honest with you guys. This is one of the most difficult things that I've had to tackle as a human being. Is vulnerability. I've grown up, and just my past has really taught me that, hey, look, you need to harden up. Like, you can't constantly bitch and moan and cry about everything that's going on in your life, because bad shit's going to happen. Now, I have probably taken that to an extreme. Now, it's worked out for me in some areas of my life, because I'm not big on complaining about stuff. I'm one of the types that's going to put my head down and get after it and work hard. But I'll tell you, where you're really going to find out that vulnerability is important, and if you don't have it, you'll see it real quick. It's in your relationship. Yep. If you don't, as a man, have a certain level of vulnerability, then your wife will start to think that she married a robot. And that's the last thing that you want, because your wife needs to see your vulnerability. And believe it or not, you can still be the rock for your family. You can still be strong. You can still control things. And that's where I have a problem balancing stuff, is being emotionally stable, but still being vulnerable, because I am so emotionally stable that I don't show vulnerability. And that is a conversation that I've had with my wife. Actually, just recently, as of yesterday, we had that conversation. She's like, I didn't marry a fucking robot. I need you. If something bad happens, I need to know that I'm not crazy.
Right.
You need to be a rock, but you need to also show emotion. Like, you feel. You need to show that you feel things. Yeah,
and that's something that 100%. I struggle with.
There's a difference between weakness and vulnerability.
Correct.
There is. There's absolutely a difference, and that's something that I struggle with. And my poor wife has been the recipient of that, and that's one of my shortcomings for sure. So this episode right here is something that I definitely probably will go back. I don't say probably. I will go back and I'll listen to this episode, because this is something that I need to hear, especially from guys that are capable of doing that, because I am not.
And you're going to play it for Dina too. You can be like, see, I am.
See,
I do
I'm
have
trying.
feelings.
Hey, you're being vulnerable.
I even told the guys. I told
the world.
You told the world, man, that you have some vulnerability issues, and now you were vulnerable, and thank you for that.
I'm cured.
Mm-hmm. You've acknowledged it, which is step one.
That's step one. How many? There's 12 steps, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Vulnerability is probably something that I developed when I had kids. I think I was more void of it coming up, because I thought it gave me power, and it can, but maybe not the power you're looking for. I firmly believe that obviously with a daughter, there's a different level. First of all, I was raised primarily by my mom and stepdad. When I came out here, I learned I think I was more soft there, of course, city boy obviously, and then you come into the country a little bit rougher. There's a little more responsibility put on my shoulders. My dad liked to put more responsibility on my shoulders and have me help take care of the homestead. We didn't live on a farm. It was just a normal house. He had me mow the yard, stuff like that. Gave me chores. I didn't have that when I grew up in Vegas, at least at first. So it was kind of neat. He'd be like, "Oh, you want lunch? Cool, make your sandwich." And I was like 8, and I was like, "Dude, but Mom makes it back home." So it was just like it was different. So yeah. So difference. Being raised by my mom primarily. I'm obviously more in touch with my feelings. So the vulnerability isn't really a. And I'll say this, my and Josh, I know you raised her. Your mom obviously. Our moms are two different women, right? So there's a difference there. My mom is also in touch with her feelings as well. So I think that was more passed down to me, whereas my dad was a former Marine. So a little bit different. The Marines broke him down, created a human being, as they do in the military. And when they come back into civilian life, it is a little bit different. So I kind of got the best of both worlds. So having that vulnerability, my dad not having kids until his mid-20s. My little sister wasn't born until I think 9 years after. So I was 9 when my sister was born. So as far as vulnerability goes, I owe a lot of to my mom for that, and more of the humbleness. Obviously, going through therapy was a whole, or my daughter being born, and then going through therapy for my marriage was a whole nother level of vulnerability. I think when you have a little girl, there's a sense of panic, especially in this day and age.
Oh yeah.
And that's why I love being a part of the movement, is because it's I'm hoping that we can ultimately save some females down the line, and even save, I'll say, males as well from making stupid decisions in the heat of the moment, or decisions down the line, not knowing how to be a husband or a dad or anything else, but proper. We've been over that before too. But vulnerability, guys, is extremely important and an extremely crucial ability. Whether you're having kids, whether you're getting into a relationship, it's okay. I think the and I would love to go. We'll go into like dating nowadays is a totally different game than when we were dating our wives now. But there's a level of vulnerability that can land you a stronger relationship, and you guys talked about being the rock a moment ago. And yes, it's important to be that solid foundation for your family, that quote unquote rock, right? But as far as being emotionally available or vulnerable to them, that's crucial. It's how your kids are looking to you for that example. It's crucial for them to be able to look to you for to learn how to be vulnerable with their own emotions. So Eric knocked over a cup the other day. We've talked about this all the time, and he was tore up about it, dude. Tore up. I'm like, hey man, it's okay. There are times when he'll throw a fit and he'll cry, and I'll go, bro, what are you crying for, man? Bro, he's just tired. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, man, let's go lay down. Let's go pop on a movie. Let's go lay down. His emotions are all over the place. He's 4. He doesn't know how to control his emotions. But that's it's important for us as parents to understand he doesn't know how to control his emotions, allow him to feel that way, but at the same time corralling it. Controlling that, not controlling his emotions, but controlling the limits as to let him. If I let him throw himself on the floor, he will sit there and cry and fake cry until he is noticed.
Mm-hmm. So in some areas I'm for.
I'm
telling you right now.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
yelled at Maverick today before we came here. Like getting out of the truck, he had 2 pieces of paper in his hand. I said, "Open the door and get out," because I was already late. Obviously,
my hands are full.
Like,
dude.
I've got to go. Yeah. Get out of the truck, and he had his papers. He's like, "I can't open the door." And I'm like, "Get out of the truck!"
And then you realize, maybe he doesn't think.
Maybe he actually believes that he's got his hands full.
Yeah.
And
I'm guilty of that.
I gotta catch myself, sure. Man.
I do it to my 2-year-old. I literally have snapped my 2-year-old when he's been emotional like that, and be like, "Dude, are you freaking kidding me? We're not crying about that."
Yeah.
And then you go, "Yeah, but he's 2. I mean, he doesn't really have a lot of experience with what we cry about and what we don't cry about."
I remember when gummy bears were a really serious situation.
That's exactly right.
Let me get that chocolate milk, dude.
Yeah. Hey, I want to. I don't know if you're finished with that thought, but I want to throw something in about what you were talking about with the importance of the family unit. Mm-hmm. The importance of family unit. Now, listen, there's no judgment here on any of this. I come from a divorced family. My parents divorced when I was 2 years old. I've been very fortunate to have 2 great parents. I just had them in different households. And then I had when I was 15, I had a stepmom that came along, and she is fantastic. She's a huge part of my life too. So, but it's so important to have those 2 roles of examples. And typically, not always, but typically, the mother has more of the emotion, just as a woman, more of the emotion and the vulnerability, and the father more of the steadfastness and anchor and rock for the family, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, and the reason I want to bring that up is because not that to go against what we're talking about, which is as a man you should show vulnerability or you should have some vulnerability, because you should, but you're probably not ever going to have as much as a woman. I mean, that's just the truth about it. You're not gonna. Women are more emotional creatures than men are.
When we're talking about emotions, yes.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. They're more nurturing.
Yeah,
but
sure.
So my point is that just how important the family unit is. Mm-hmm. How important for a child, a developing child, to have a family unit with a mother and a father, preferably in the same household, but worst case scenario that they both spend time with. They spend time with both of them that are those examples. And I say that because even though my parents were divorced at an early age, I don't remember them being married. I still don't have any negative thoughts of my childhood because I had both examples, mm-hmm. and I feel like and I'm obviously not perfect at this, but I feel like I have a solid grasp on what I'm trying to accomplish with my children when it comes to being that rock and that anchor and being unwavering on certain things, but then also being a little more vulnerable, maybe even emotional to the sense of some other things. You need to be able to show both of those, but it's because I had examples of both of those.
Right.
Whereas if you only had one, it might be a little tougher.
It's almost like it was
Designed that way by a
Right.
creator.
So I can relate to and I can relate to you. My family, my mom and dad, they were divorced before I could remember. I was probably
Were you young?
3.
Really?
Yeah, I was pretty young.
I didn't realize that.
So
thought you
I
were older.
honestly, the first time I ever met my dad, I didn't know he was my dad until my sister gave him a hug, and then I realized that was my dad.
No shit. I didn't know that.
That was my first meeting of my dad.
Wow.
So
How were you?
I was probably 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there. I'm not sure. Those younger years, it just kind of escapes me. But I can relate to.
I don't remember a lot about before I was 4.
4 or 5, something like that.
It's weird.
I remember though, my dad was very militant. He was Army, so he was very. His wife though at the time was more militant and a little bit more strict. Where he wanted to be a little bit more sympathetic because we only had like a weekend, so he didn't want to have to give us the same rules that his stepson was doing. So that was kind of the situation there. And then my mom, she's just, anybody who meets her, she's just a joy. And I was raised by her primarily most of my life. And like we were saying, you're a little bit more in tune with your emotional side or being more open. Because that's what they show.
When I think of I think very in tune with his emotional side and open.
Great communicator.
No,
he's
I'm
the best.
kidding. It's an inside joke with the 4 of us.
Right.
I'm stern, and my family knows I'm stern.
Right,
you know, when I do things and there are standards in this house, and we do things the right way, and we do it to a certain standard. And when standards aren't met, I mean, there's consequences. You know, it's similar to. I don't run my home like a business, but at the same time, when you're at work, there's a certain standard you have to do things, and when you don't do it to a certain standard, then you're in trouble. You know, it's pursuing excellence. There's not perfection or anything like that. And I don't expect my kid. I'm not like, you didn't get an A. You were a failure. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing like that. Like my kids get C's and B's and stuff. Or Mia gets C's and B's, and I don't beat on her for it. You know, we just talk about it and we try to be better next time. It's all. It's what it is. We learn from our failures and we move on. But I am stern for sure.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and when it's business time, there is a lack of emotion because it's business time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you should have a fine balance of that. You should be able to turn it on and off. And what I want to clarify for the listeners too, and for the table too, which shouldn't have to be able to clarify that, but we're not talking about being like a walking mat. Being vulnerable doesn't mean that you just allow anybody and everybody just to kind of walk all over you. You have to have your own principles, like what O was talking about, and your core values and what you believe is what you stay by. Now, you already plugged him, but Sean Whalen has a good book, How to Make Shit Happen. I would recommend everybody who's listening or watching to go get a book. It's actually like $6-7, very doable. And he talks about, and if you ever watch any of his videos, he believes in vulnerability as a superpower. And one of the things that I really liked when I was reading the book is that, you know, he set it up to where you control who are in your life. You control who you talk to, drink with, sleep with, all of that. You are 100% in control of the other humans you allow in your space every single day. And if there is a contention or unresolved issue, it's on you to either fix them or sever the relationship. And what we're talking about, if you can't be vulnerable with the people you've selected in your sphere of influence, then you need to get rid of some of those folks in your sphere of influence, because you should be vulnerable with any and every single one of them. But if you're being vulnerable and the person who is taking that vulnerability and using it against you, then that's not a good relationship. If they continue to walk all over you like you were welcoming Matt, then that's not a good relationship, and you should get rid of it or try to fix it if it's worth fixing, or if it's someone who you care about. But if it's somebody who won't fix or won't change, then you need to separate yourself from that relationship so you can stay vulnerable with those who accept you for who you are. Y'all have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, I agree with that 100% as far as what a true relationship is. I think it's the difference between a friendship, relationship, and an acquaintance. You know, I can tell you from my experience, and I think probably a lot of people have a similar story, is, you know, coming up through high school then into college, you have these people that you're friends with, But a lot of times you're just friends with them because you sat next to them in class, or because in college they took the same classes, or you either lived in the same apartment complex, or they played the same intramural sports, or whatever it was.
So it was deep.
Yeah, so it was super deep. Or you drank at the same bar, which is typically what it ended up being for me. And so I had these friends through college that were awesome friends. We partied like rock stars, and we had a good time. And then when it became to a level of, not all, but when it came to a level of vulnerability or a true connection, that friend group whittled down tremendously, and it became more of, oh wow, I realized I got a lot of acquaintances, and then I have a handful of real true friends and relationships. But those real true friends, and I feel like, honestly, I've been blessed over my lifetime to have more of those relationships than I think a lot of people do. I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like I've been very fortunate to have a lot of very good vulnerable friendships and relationships with people over the years, which is powerful. When you can have, I mean, for lack of a better way of saying it, when you can have shit on each other, like I know shit about you, you know shit about me, we've been wide open with each other, and we're still tight. You don't judge me, I don't judge you, we got each other's back. That's a real relationship. When it's, hey, you didn't make it to the bar tonight, you're not cool anymore, that's just a dick, But so there's a difference between, and just for clarity, there's a difference between getting drunk and spilling your guts to somebody that doesn't really care what you're saying, and actually having a true vulnerable relationship with people that care about you. Right. When I could do it with any of these guys sitting at this table. I could sit down and tell you my deepest, darkest secrets, and there would be no judgment, there'd be no nothing. And if there was a need for help from you, it would be offered, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. Or if it was just hey, I'm here to listen. That's and I think I know for a fact, and I've had people reach out to me directly as we've been doing this podcast, and they've learned about Shepherds of Men. They said, one thing that I'd love to hear more about is how important it is for men to be open nowadays, as opposed to back in the day, it was you just close everything off, you just shut it down, And I love my dad, and y'all have heard me talk about my dad with just the highest admiration. The one thing that I would say that I would love to see more of out of my dad is vulnerability. Yep. To this day, I still have to kind of force him to hug me, and I do it because it's fun on my end to force him, But we have not been super vulnerable with each other in certain things. It haven't gotten real deep. Outside of that, I mean, I'd give him a 9 out of 10. But it's important because nowadays, like, I think a true gentleman, a true man, a true leader has to go, hey, this is the places where I'm bad. Like, I'm not good at this, or this is where I'm vulnerable. This is where I have weaknesses. This is where I'm, whatever. This is the stuff that messes me up. The stuff that I don't really want people to know about, but I have to fight it.
And I'm glad you said that, because I actually had a conversation recently over the last weekend with my dad, because he gave me he doesn't come with wealth or whatever. So for my birthday, he gave me a gift from his grandfather, who I've never heard about. And he gave it to me, and in the gift, or the act of giving it to me, almost cried, like he was holding it back emotionally, and which meant that there was something significant about this gift. And I told him that. I was like, man, I didn't realize this was that important, and I've never heard of your grandfather. I would love to have some time to learn about it. And he goes, definitely. And it's just so small things. You just give it up voluntarily for the people that you love and care about, and that are in that circle, which is pretty cool.
How much closer do you feel? I mean, I would imagine, how much closer do you feel to your dad just with that little bit of, oh, there's some of his heart right there.
Yeah. Honestly, my first, it's a tobacco pipe. I'm not going to use it, obviously, but at the same time, if I were to use it, I wouldn't want to use it, because I want to treasure that treasure of his, And the first thing I did is set it up on top of my dresser at home, where I know it's going to be protected. And it was just really cool, just that initial moment that we don't really share a lot of, and that was him being vulnerable. But he still, you could tell him he was holding it in, And I'm like, just give it to me now, like tell me what's going on. And those small moments, don't miss it with your children when you have a chance, or if you do tear up, talk about it. Let it loose a little bit with your son, and let them know, or your daughter, what matters to you. And if they go through a whole life, I mean, I'm 36 years old, and I don't know much about my dad, other than a few things, and that was a special moment. So,
yeah, I'm 33. I just met mine
Right? And he's been
We're
around a
laughing
lot
with
now.
you, not-
Yeah. So, and I think that's a big driver, as far as I'm concerned, for vulnerability. I never had a man in my life to come sit next to me that was like my people's, put his arm around me and be like, dude, it's okay to mess up. It's okay. Sometimes you're gonna fall down. You get back up. I never had that. And it's not a pity thing. I just hope that people that are out there that are listening right now, because I know there's a lot of people that are listening that never had a dad or may not have a dad right now involved in their lives. Just don't live that life afterwards. Because one of the things that I made myself personally a promise for is that my kids would never pay for the way that I grew up. And I don't blame my dad for that. I'm just telling you right now, because if I blame my dad for it, then I would have no control over it. So I don't blame my dad for it.
That's a nugget right there.
Yeah, I don't blame my dad for it at all. But one of the things that I've made very, very clear to myself personally on what I will do is I will always sit next to my boys and I'll go, dude, look, sometimes you're going to fall down. It's okay. My relationship with men from my entire life has been very, very cautious, for a lack of better words. I didn't have that relationship with guys, because I think, like, if you have a really good relationship with your father, relationship with men comes easy.
Yeah.
If you don't have a relationship with your dad, relationship with men starts to become a little bit questioned, right? Like, he's cool, I like him, he's a buddy of mine and stuff like that, but if I get real close, he's going to leave. And you can't help but have that in the back of your mind. I know there's probably people that struggle with that kind of stuff, and I don't anymore, because I've been blessed to be surrounded by people that I can talk to, people that I can do it. And Cameron, you made a comment about being able to, like, truly spill your guts to people and talk to people and stuff. And that's one of the greatest releases in the world is actually being able to be vulnerable with people that you respect. Sitting down, like we just talked about earlier, we'll probably light a fire later on tonight whenever we leave and stuff like that, and be able to sit around the fire and talk about shit that I don't talk about to other people. I just don't, because that stuff needs to come out. That stuff needs to be conversations that you have, and it needs to be conversations that you have with people that know that, that care about you, and that they have your best interest in mind. And that's been a struggle for me, man. And just being 100% transparent, because the fact of the matter is it might help somebody else. But if your dad wasn't around, take control of that. Make sure that it doesn't continue down the lineage. Make sure that if you have kids, that your boys know that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to fall down. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to do stuff like that, because it's something I've struggled with my entire life. And that's why failure has always been something that terrifies me, because I feel like if I fail, I won't be accepted, as far as other men are concerned.
Right.
So for me, and not trying to get too deep as far as that stuff is concerned, but I think that there's a lot of people out there that have problems with that, because it's like, if you fail and your dad comes up behind you and he picks you up, dusts you off, gets the dirt off of you and stuff, and says, all right, let's go again, that's a huge boost in your confidence. I can get back up. If that was never there, my mom did her best. I give my mom all the credit in the world. She did her best. She tried to play both sides, but it's not the same thing. Yeah. Family unit's important.
Very.
So if you were part of that situation, you could relate to that, like relate to where I came from. Just make sure that it stops where you are.
Yeah.
Make sure that never happens to your kids or their kids, or they understand that kind of stuff. That's the most important part about that, because I still fight with the vulnerability. I have an easier time being vulnerable with my kids than I do with my wife. And that's a struggle that I have to battle. That's something that I have to fix. It's something that I have to do better, and I have to own that. But ultimately, that's kind of, because of the fact that I've been around other guys that I respect, that I can talk to and have deep conversations with, I've been able to do that with my kids.
And just as an example, I think the vulnerability I would have with another man that I respect, or with my wife or something like that, might be, and probably should be, different than what I would have with my kids. I'm not necessarily opening up to my kids about everything that is challenging to me or that I struggle with. I mean, I'm not really, that's not their burden to bear. But the vulnerability that I have with my sons is that I make sure that I tell them I love them, and I think I could be wrong, but I think there was a generation that was not really common.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was dads just don't say I love you.
I grew up like that. My stepdad was like that. To this day, like you talked about with your dad, it's still very awkward, like hugging, and there's not the I love you kind
And
of.
you know
weird.
it's there.
That's my
I mean,
stepdad.
like
It's a butt out hug.
Yeah, butt out hug, or like
Side
the neck
awkward
sideways,
hug,
or
yeah.
One
like
arm.
I have to manhandle. I literally have to manhandle him, you know, and it's still weird to him.
Yeah.
But
Come here, you big son bitch.
for a long time, honestly, we didn't say I love you. I mean, like, let me take that back. When I was a kid, my dad would tell me I love you, or tell me he loved me, but it wasn't all the time. Now, when I talk to him on the phone, because we don't see each other all the time, it's when we get off the phone, I love you, you know, that kind of stuff. But that wasn't as common when I was younger. He's softened up in his old age. But with my boys, man, dude, when I was coming up here, I don't miss an opportunity to tell my kids I love them. Never. Like I got this. I used to joke about this before I had kids about my mom. Listen, my mom and I disagree on a lot of things. Our worldview is about as far off base from each other as it could possibly get.
Yeah,
but my
I know.
mom has a huge heart, and I know how much she loves me, because she would hug me. If she was walking out to the mailbox, she would hug me like she wasn't going to see me for 6 months. I'm not exaggerating.
At
like,
the ballot while you're voting for Donald Trump, she would hug you.
I don't know if she'd hug me during that time.
I don't know.
That's gonna be a hard hug. But she does. I mean, she literally, like, it was that side of my family unit was very much, they showed love, and it was a hug all the time. Now I do that with my boys now, and I do a hug and a kiss with the little guys, but it's always odd. Like when I was leaving to come up here, they were getting in my wife's truck to go somewhere else, and it's every single time in the eyes, I love you, looking in the eyes.
And that's important, because it's not I need you to hear me, it's I need you to feel me.
Yep.
Right.
They feel you through their eyes. And when you say something, you say I need eyes.
I will
they
not
feel you.
I will not leave until Cash, the little one. He's funny because he knows the drill now. Like, he knows, like, Daddy comes give you a hug and you say I love you, but he'll look at my mouth. Like, I can see his eyes looking at my mouth, and I'll be like, eyes, Cash, eyes. And he's like more intentional about looking at my mouth. I'm like, no, buddy, up here. And he's like, then he looks at my eyes. He's like, I love you, you know. But
Wilson still does that.
Yeah, no. It's important though, man. Like, and I'm not trying to be morbid or whatever, but
You never know.
that's
You just
exactly
never
it.
know.
Like, I just, like, every time I do it, I just think, like, if their last memory of me is right now,
It better be.
I want them to remember my eyes. I want them to remember what that feeling was. And I want that 2-year-old or 5-year-old or whatever, if it happened to be, God forbid, the last time they ever saw me, I want that 5-year-old for the rest of his life to know how much his dad loved him.
Yep.
And never question it.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that, Cameron.
No.
Well, I really don't. I don't think there's any doubt.
But it just
It's
so
a
that's
great point,
But that's an
but,
example of vulnerability from my point to my 5-year-old is
Right.
different
Yeah.
than my vulnerability
Well,
to you.
Let me clarify that. I think because you do that on a regular basis, there's no doubt.
Right.
There's no doubt in their
Right.
minds
right.
whatsoever.
Yep. I like to touch. We touch foreheads.
Oh
Me
yeah,
and- me and
like
Eric.
the rabbits. No, that's for asking for forgiveness.
Yeah, I
Oh,
don't know what
Peter
that is.
Rabbit, dude.
I don't know. I watch rabbit shit. We watch
Peter
like
Rabbit.
real animals. Wolves,
Yeah.
lions,
Like
you know what I'm talking
Thor,
Sorry,
yeah.
I forgot. You're a
Wolverine,
Yeah, geez.
those kind of animals,
wolf. Dragons,
Jeez, look at
Spitfire.
about? Yeah,
dragons and shit.
My son's
So, yeah,
like
T-Rex.
real animals.
yeah,
My
like
son's T-Rex.
unicorns, griffins. Okay, real
He's got
animals.
that. He's got that.
Gargoyles. So I'm that gargoyles guy.
I can't fucking deal with you. I'm leaving.
Loch Ness monster. Come on, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Are you the gatekeeper?
No, see, I'm kind of so I fuck with my dad a little bit. So he'll like we do the hug thing. He's always been about that. But now I'll be like, oh God, I think our dicks touched.
Because you're the same height now.
Right? Yeah. Right.
Before it was his dick on your forehead. That was weird.
Now talk about
It's
vulnerability.
like,
funny.
yeah, Kevin Hart and Shaq kind of relationship.
I gotta use that. That's great.
Yeah, I just it's
That's hilarious.
I think I'm
I'm
gonna use
picturing
that.
Shaq and Kevin Hart. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh.
Right?
yeah.
He's underneath.
Kevin Hart is like a little Shaq turd.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
Mercy.
He could be teabagged by him all the
Wow.
time. He's
I tell you
bag.
the benefit though of
Speed
being and it's something I'm seeing now is that Amelia's not, and this is a huge deal because typically, especially nowadays, kids don't want to go to their parents about a lot of shit. And I will say that she comes to me with things like
That's
issues she's
huge.
experiencing with
Really good.
the things she's thinking about, the way things she's feeling now. And then, hey, my friends are having this dumb fight, and she'll tell me about it. She just kind of offloads when she needs to. And we have it's kind of, I mean, she's going to be 11 this year, but they're fairly adult conversations almost.
So.
And I let her know. I said, well, this is, and she gets all, goofy, the way I call it, because she's like, it's so awkward. I'm like, dude, look, you came to me with adult conversations, and we're going to have adult conversation, And
it builds her confidence like
for sure.
crazy.
big time. Because that's one thing that I never wanted to be an issue, was that she had to feel like she hid things from me. Now obviously she has a tablet, and I let her get on, and we block some communication things with games, because there's some weird fuckers out there, everybody knows that, but for the most part I give her a lot of freedom. She doesn't have social media yet, she doesn't need it. 13 is the minimum, but by then she will understand how to use that. That's the previous
Freedom
episode.
with expectations, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So she's gonna have the freedom to experience things that are fucking weird in this world, but I want her to be prepared for it, and she will be prepared for it, because we can have those kind of conversations. But we're 11 years in the making now, being able to have these conversations. But she grew up, and she was the only child for 7 years, and she grew up around all adults, in music and everything else. So it's been. She's a little more mature and advanced in her age. She'll probably never find a guy, or if she does, she'll be like 50 when she's like 20 or some shit. Because I'm telling you guys, she's
really gonna freak out.
Well, hey man, as long as there's a good 401k that she's gonna get, take care of me when
As
he
long
dies.
as his portfolio is well
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
diversified.
30-year difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Billy
Hey,
Bob
look,
does.
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, get a girl, whatever. Just take care of dad.
I
Remember?
ain't saying she a gold digger.
Just make sure Daddy can retire.
Yeah, exactly. Just take care of dad. No, I mean, in all seriousness, that's not even her, but she is, man. She's way beyond her years in a lot of things, and it's like, God, and I think it's easy to forget. And we talked about 2-year-olds and 4-year-olds. I think it's really easy for us to forget how old or how young they are.
Yeah.
And Amelia, it's really is tough, because it's almost like I'm talking to just a small adult. And that's how we're raising them, is to be adults.
Yep.
But it's like, I have to remember that when she doesn't do stuff, I can't come down on her like an adult or hold her accountable to an adult level all the time, because she still is a kid. Like, I need to allow her to be that way. And I talked to my mom and now her ex-husband, who raised me, and that was one of his things coming up. He actually, everything I'd been through with him, he actually wrote me a like an apology letter, going through therapy and everything. That was one of his conditions he had to do. And that was one thing he said, and I'll never forget it. He said, man, I never let you be a kid. He goes, I always was in your ass about some dumb shit. I want to apologize about that. And that was huge, and I think it's important. Yes, be vulnerable to your kids, but we talked about to a certain level. And even on the opposite side of things, if you're going to be stern like I am, just remember they're kids. You can raise adults, but let them be kids at the same time. There's a dichotomy in everything. Just understand that, But as far as being vulnerable, like, I'm the only one at the table with the daughter. As far as being vulnerable in that aspect, just it's a
Give them enough rope to hang themselves.
for sure, But it's a platinum rule thing, Treat them how they want to be treated, just like you would, just like you would your friends or the rest of your family. The golden rule is outdated. It's not a treated people how you would want to be treated, because not everyone wants to be treated the way you want to be treated. Other people want to be treated the way they want to be treated. So I think to have a pure relationship, you need to understand that and know the people to understand that. But the same with your kids, I'm not saying if your kid wants candy all the time, give them candy all the time, treat them the way they want to be treated. I'm saying that, be vulnerable enough to understand how they work and how they tick. Spend enough time with your kids to understand how they work and how they tick. Spend enough time. Look, man, just because you're married for 12 years, I think I've been with her. Well, we've been married 12 years, but this year. And no, we haven't. Shit.
This is being recorded.
Oh, you're in so much
being
trouble.
recorded.
We've been together. Easy. We've been together 12 years. We married in 2012. We've been married for 8 years. There we go.
Yeah.
I wasn't off. We're good.
That
Dang,
wasn't
you've been
off.
together 12
Only
years?
4 years.
No. We've been together 12 years. 2008, we started dating. April of 2008. And we got married in October of 2012.
Now you're questioning
Me and Dan have been together longer than you and Candy.
I just want to know where that voice came from.
Oh,
that was
that's
very
right.
high pitched.
Sorry about
that
that.
was.
He's being vulnerable.
I'm being vulnerable. That's my vulnerability. Oh, that's right.
It's
Because
coming
you were
up.
in prom. I remember.
Yeah,
yeah.
that
Me
was-
and Dana were in prom. Yeah, you weren't, because that's when you met That's when you left with Candy.
We didn't meet there. We met very shortly before that, though.
You left with Candy, though.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
I stole her right out from under.
Yeah, I thought. You left with Candy. Okay, I remember. Yeah, you're right.
Got some swagger.
It's crazy.
Man.
Well,
Okay.
I didn't show up with her, but I left with her.
So I'm a big. So I would agree with that big time.
100%.
And the reason that I said, the comment about giving them enough rope to hang themselves is because I believe that we underestimate kids a lot of times. We underestimate their abilities, what they understand is right and wrong, because kids will play you if you allow it. So I'm a big proponent of freedom. I think freedom will truly bring out responsibility in an individual. You give somebody freedom and allow them to feel their consequences, then responsibility is short thereafter.
Yep.
And after responsibility and consequences and things of that nature, you start to develop, confidence in yourself. And
You had mentioned something about Braylon and Snapchat. Will you go over that one more time?
yeah, so Braylon asked me if he could put Snapchat on his phone, and I told him, I said,
How old's Braylon?
He's 11. Well, he's 12 now. He was 11 at the time. And I said, do you think Snapchat's a good idea? And he said, well, yeah, all my friends are on Snapchat. I said,
I have no clue. I'm 11.
and he said, well, no, what he said was, he said, all my friends are on Snapchat. I said, okay, so since your friends are on it, it's a good decision, right? And he paused, and he looked at me because it required him to think. And he went, I guess, I mean, I don't guess so. And I said, okay, listen, Snapchat is a great thing if you make it a great thing. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to allow you to put Snapchat on your phone. But I'm going to allow you to do it because I trust you to make the right decisions on what's right and what's wrong. He came back to me 2 weeks later, said I deleted Snapchat. I said, why? He said, because some girl tried to add me that had her boobs out. I said, what? And he said, she tried to add me, and she sent me a picture or whatever it may be, and I saw it, and she had her boobs out or whatever it may be, and it was unacceptable. I deleted it.
Up. My 11-year-old self looks up to your 11-year-old self. I feel like that had gone differently. If
I'm going to be honest with you. I looked at him and I went, why'd you delete it? No.
I'm downloading it right now.
Yeah.
What was her username again?
Yeah. No, but all in all reality, that probably was some creep that was not actually a chick sending a picture and stuff. But that was the conversation, and to him after that, it was the follow up was, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
That's big boy decisions.
Yeah, that's huge.
That was a big boy responsibility, big boy decisions.
And for him to feel like he could just come to you and say that, I mean, that says a lot about y'all's relationship.
He was proud of it.
That's vulnerability on his part.
Right.
To allow your parents, I mean, that you're lowering your guard to allow your parents to get onto you about something. You know, there's a vulnerability in that relationship already.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to point that out. That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that.
No, absolutely, man.
So now I want to switch gears because we did talk about about the kids. Let's talk about your wives. Vulnerability as a man with your wife. Now, in our relationship with my mom and my dad would always tell me I love you, and my mom would not as much.
Your mom would?
Yeah, funny thing. You would have to say
that.
like I would be on the phone and be I love you, and like she would not say it. And then sometimes she would.
You couldn't have tried to pay me off with all the money in the world to believe that.
I know it's weird.
Knowing your mom.
My dad, I guess just because we weren't around enough, he just wanted to make sure he knew, like we knew that he loved us. But my mom, because of her mother's relationship, it was very toxic, and they didn't say it a lot. So, and then anybody like my sister and my mom, if my sister hugged her too much, she would push her away. It was weird. And then she grew out of that, and now she is the woman she is today. But in the beginning, that's kind of how it was. So having kids does make that difference. But now coming into a relationship with someone who you married, being vulnerable with them, how does that look behind closed doors or in general? And it's sharing those, not necessarily being the girl or crying or going to him for strength, because that's not the case. I want to make sure we have that very clear. You are the rock in that relationship of giving strength to your wife and your kids. However, you should talk to her about decisions, things that are going to affect your family, being vulnerable about where you're at in that decision making, because she is a part of your life forever. Also, sharing with her about how you love her or what the things that you like, because a lot of guys typically try to be very not open about that kind of stuff. They're not just free coming with it when they need it. Now, my wife and I are two polar opposites when it comes to that. I am an open book, and I've always been that. That's my vulnerability strength when it comes to anybody. And it's a little bit too much to a fault in a bad sense, because sometimes I can be too open with somebody that I may not know. And now I know discernment, and I know what not to say, what to give. But for me, I guess the most difficult part for me when it came to being married was just, maybe should I say so much, because you want to make sure that you keep that relationship pure. But there are some things that all of us have past. How much of that past do you want to give? And that's a challenge sometimes.
So I struggle with this. Like, this is not a strong point for me. And this is probably my wife. I'm being vulnerable right now because it's easier for me to talk about it here and have my wife hopefully secondarily hear it. So I'm either being weak or vulnerable, however you want to look at it.
Right.
But now, in some cases, my wife and I are very vulnerable with each other as far as our past. I struggled with a lot of alcohol and drug abuse in the past. You wouldn't have known it, not to the level to where I was like going to rehab and things like that, but it was more like very much strong substance abuse for a number of years lifestyle. It was just my lifestyle. And really keeping myself from accomplishing great things because I was just partying all the time. And then also with relationships, not relationships, but what's the word when you're promiscuous? I was very promiscuous, those kinds of things. And I'm not saying that in a braggadocious way. I'm saying that in a unhealthy way, honestly. So we've talked about those kinds of things, but now we've been married 7 years this year. And I still struggle with being vulnerable about truly opening up about the way I feel about certain things. And it's not because I really care that she know. It's tough to have the actual conversation. But it's not because she would make it tough necessarily, but because I think that it would cause some kind of conversation I don't want to have. And so I have a tendency to just go, I just want to skip that. So, and I'm just opening up honestly right now. Like, I just don't like, there's some things that I will smooth over or pass by because I just don't want to deal with, potential, but probably self-imposed or scenarios that I've created in my own mind, how it would go down. They probably wouldn't even really go down that way. And so I kind of just like, whatever, and I'm talking about like simple stuff like, hey, do you what's going on? I'm good. I'm fine. Which I think a lot of dudes do. I'm fine. Yeah. I'm fine.
Everything's fine.
And it could be that I'm not fine. I'm dealing with this. This is what I'm stressed out about. This is what I have anxiety about. This. And I have a tendency to just be like, now part of that is because I believe that she's got her own shit she's dealing with. She's got her own emotional stuff as a mom and as a wife and as a friend to other ladies that are emotional. And my wife is, just like all of our wives, is a woman of strength. And so they tend to take on the burdens of their friends and all that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of like, I don't want to bog her down with my stuff, but probably sometimes to a fault. Probably sometimes I should just be more like, okay, my back fucking hurts and I'm pissed about this. Right. But she doesn't hear that all the time. No. Honestly, she really doesn't. Like, you got to deal with some of that stuff. So anyways, that's me being open and vulnerable.
No,
Josh just breathed heavy.
He's
like
dang.
Well, and this is probably not my strong suit to speak on, by any means. So I'm not going to give advice to anybody. I'll tell you where I'm at. Very similar to where Cameron's at. And I think part of my personality, part of my character, was developed by being an alpha male, and being the guy that can go pick up a chick. Because I live the same lifestyle. I mean, my wife and I have been together for 12 years. Obviously same as so and I'm very blessed to have been humbled by God and said, hey, look, it's time to settle the hell down and find somebody that's worth building an empire with, which is what I'm really excited about. But some habits are hard to break, and for me, I developed my character early on in life by being an alpha male. I was whether it's athlete, picking up girls, being promiscuous, as you described
Yeah.
that, and I'm the same way. I mean, I don't want to talk about stuff like that. It's really irrelevant in my mind. But there's a lot of things, and on the flip side of that, I am extremely optimistic. I'm a very optimistic individual. I look at things in terms of like the freaking world could be coming to an end, and I would find something in that that's going to be beneficial for me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's just the way my mind works. My wife doesn't, because that does not show any kind of vulnerability. Like, it's cool, we'll figure it out. You know, we're going to go get it. We're going to do it, dude. Like, let's go. Let's get after it, you know, whatever. And it drives Dina nuts, man. It does. It really does drive her nuts. And rightfully so. I mean, Maverick, and I'll give you an example. Maverick had a huge knot on the side of his head. I think you guys may have seen it.
Maverick or
Maverick.
I mean, Nash.
Nash.
Sorry, Nash. I have multiple kids, so I don't even remember.
Well, Maverick had a knot, but not on his head.
I was like, this was 2 weeks ago when we were here, right?
Yeah.
So he has this huge knot on the side of his head. And it's kind of soft and stuff like that. And Dina's freaking the hell out. You know, obviously she goes straight to WebMD, and it takes her straight to brain cancer and, you know, all this other bullshit. You know, you keep swiping enough, and it drives me nuts because I'm complete polar opposite of that. Yep. I looked at him like, dude, shit's fine. It's okay. He's got swollen side of his head. He hit his head. It's all good. We'll take care of it. We'll go to the doctor Monday, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's no big deal. And we get into this knockdown, drag out kind of argument. And a lot of it is because I'm not willing to be vulnerable in those situations. I look at that and go, look, he's fine. He's okay. He's not loopy. He's not like lethargic. He's not out of balance more than a 9-month-old would be. Like, everything's fine. I'm not going to worry about it until the doctor tells me there's a reason to worry about it. Like, that's just how my mind works. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to worry about that stuff. But what I don't understand is that my wife is dying on the other side of the line. My wife is over here dying, going, does my child have a serious problem? Does he have a cracked cranium? Does he have internal bleeding in his brain? And stuff like that. And for me, I'm thinking that I'm doing the right thing. Right. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good. We'll go to the doctor Monday. Everything's fine. Like, he's fine. He's okay. He's not acting weird or whatever it may be. Just, like, chill out. But to her, now not only has it compounded the fact that the kid has a problem or has a knot on his head, but it's also compounded the fact that now she thinks she's fucking crazy.
Mm.
Yeah, our relationships are very similar.
There's a power to that. So, and only because I've talked to I'll just say I paid someone that was, I don't know,
very in tune with their psychological side.
Someone with a degree that was very in tune with it and helping couples with this problem. So I think validating the panic is good, but I think it's important to be the center of gravity.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a control the situation. Like, listen, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I think he's okay. We got to wait till take him to the doctor on Monday. You know, it's controlling the situation, having that calm tone. I think you're handling it from. I think you're handling it okay. I think it's just she's panicking, but acknowledging that panic instead of correcting it, right?
Right.
So if you're approaching
wrong.
it, like,
right.
dude, he's fine. Just shut up. You know, like I'm not saying you're saying that.
No,
but,
I did.
But it can
perfect. Yeah, perfect.
I didn't tell her to shut up. Right. But I definitely
Like,
approached
God,
it from
I
dude, you need to relax.
Yeah, Dino, relax.
Yeah.
But that's that's exact same
Stop
thing.
telling me to relax.
You don't tell any of our wives that.
Oh my gosh, dude!
Hell
If I say relax, she freaks out.
Have you guys seen the guy's videos? Like, all right, relationship advice, and the wife's in the background. He's like, so if you really want to get your wife to calm down, just tell her, babe, calm down. And the wife's in the background, like,
Yeah.
He goes, if you really want to find out what's wrong with her, ask her what's wrong.
I haven't seen that.
Dude, I love these videos. Dude, and the wife's in the background, like,
When we first got married, like, I used to ask that all the time, like, what is wrong? What is wrong? And my wife finally was like, you got to quit fucking asking me what's wrong.
I still do that to this day.
There's so many different things that you learn when you're really just watching, when you kind of just sit and put everything down and just kind of watch have you ever just done that? Like, instead of sitting on the couch or reading or anything you're doing, your wife enters the room, just stop everything you're doing and just observe them for a moment. For one, they're fucking hot most of them, right? So you're sitting there like, God damn.
Yeah.
But then you watch what they're doing, with their mannerisms, and actually observe them in their natural habitat.
Right.
It's
a wild animal.
I don't
try
do
it.
that.
I'm dead serious.
I don't
Try
do
it
that.
and see. You'll notice facial expressions on
good
things.
point.
Oh, yeah.
And then when so if they walk in the kitchen, there's a facial expression, and you're sitting on the couch reading, and maybe they're doing their maybe laundry, whatever they're doing, gym tan laundry, we'll call it. That's a throwback. I know. But that's what
Fist
I call
bump,
it.
push-ups, chapstick.
Yeah, buddy. So, yeah, buddy. But seriously, like, just stop what you're doing and observe them. If you got girlfriends, guys, observe them in their natural. If you go to their work, right? Maybe if like mine was a waitress, real easy for me to do. Go to their work, sit at a table, grab a drink, whatever, get something to eat, and just observe them at work. And just watch them a little bit. And for one, you're going to know, like, God damn, she's cute as hell. You'll appreciate them for one. But at the same time, you'll notice little things that they do. And then when you notice, then you watch them at home, you'll notice little things they do and faces they make. And you can fix things before it even becomes a problem. I promise you there.
But
one
point.
thing,
That's like cheat code stuff.
I'm telling you right now, dude. I'm full of
Somebody
them.
has been edumacated,
telling
boys.
you.
If you're listening to
That's
this,
a
you
good-
better write it
That's
down.
a good investment you made there.
I know. It's all good, man. I'm full of fucking, just DM me, dude. I got you. So,
I am basically a psychiatrist. That's what I'm-
Give or take.
I will say, so they've got
Therapist.
nano programs at work, so I actually am going to get my psychology degree for work.
Really nice.
Well, if you're in sales, I
It's
highly
worth it.
recommend
It's worth
going
it,
into
yep.
psychology anyway.
Tony Robbins.
it's all
Tony
psychology.
Robbins attributes everything he's done to psychology.
Dude, it's so freaking cool. And I took the 101 class in college as an elective. Fucking loved that class. So cool. But one thing I want to challenge you on a little bit, because from what I was listening to, it sounded like you almost contradict yourself. So you talked about being the rock and being the strength in your relationship and not unloading on your wife. And Cameron, you alluded to that as well. Is it? But then you also talked about submitting a little. There's an openness to be submitting and being open and stuff like that. So I think it is important to open up and let them know what you're experiencing. There was a moment the other night where I literally text Candy during the day when I was overwhelmed. I said, man, I feel like a fucking failure. Like, I'm trying to help these people and it's not working. And there's a strength to that. We're very in the O'Neill household. We are very much a team, and I know that they're. We've gone over biblical teachings in the past, stuff like that, and how it could be misconstrued. And I have misconstrued them for sure, but I don't think that necessarily, like, in this household, like, the man doesn't run the house, but neither does a woman. Like, we run the house, right? It's not Lord, Lady, King, Queen, whatever you want to go with it. Like, we're battle buddies when it comes down to it. Mm-hmm. I promise you, when shit hits the fan, you want the O'Neills to come, because all four of us are probably the most center to gravity people you want in your life. And even my fucking 4-year-old will go to bat for you
watch
and
the
beat
redhead,
some ass. Yeah.
If there's shins up.
For one, if there's someone that we care about, we will. We going for growings and we biting it off with our fucking teeth. I don't give a shit. So I'm telling you, man. Like,
Honey badger don't care.
Odell's looking fuck. I mean, honey badger is our flag animal. I should have said that instead of griffin. So, but there is. I think there's if you want to be a rock or you want to be strong for your wife. This is my opinion. This is just one of the 4 seats here. I think it's important to submit to her and let her know some modicum of what you're experiencing,
of course,
to get another POV on your issues. And I think that if you're with the right person, like we talk, all of our women here are extremely strong women. If you're with the right person, they won't shit talk you or down you on what you're doing. And there's toxic relationships out there, and if that's what you're experiencing, get the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for constructive criticism on the problems you're experiencing, not to bog them down with it. Don't sit there and there's again a dichotomy to everything. Don't go to them and be like, man, I had a shit day and shit this and it's awful. But be very, if you're having issues and they can tell something's wrong. Like, I came home, went to bed the other day, bro. I was done.
Yeah.
I checked the fuck out. And like, I talked to my kid. It wasn't like directly, but I talked to my kids, whatever. But I was done. Got home late. I was like, out. That's it. Turned on TV and just fell asleep. I was done with that. And she was like, hey, is there anything I can do? I was like, no, I'm good. Next day, I was like, hey, this is what I experienced. Honestly, I fucking feel like I'm failing. And I don't lose.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's not even something. I feel like I'm failing when I'm taking an L and I have nothing to learn from.
Right.
What I'm doing just
That's the
isn't
worst.
working.
Yeah.
But in my job, I have to rely on other people's ability to listen, and there's something I can't control there. So yeah, man, there's nothing I can learn from that.
It's a challenge to do that too.
Absolutely,
it's a challenge to do that. It really is.
But another thing is Cameron, you said each having our own stuff and not unloading. So I wanted to approach that too. Again, there's a dichotomy. Don't unload on your significant other and just say, hey, I had a shit day and this is why and I'm this and that. I didn't come to her and I said, I feel like this because this. And she was like, listen. And then gave me criticism. Look, I understand. Like, she acknowledged it. Like, AER, acknowledge, empathize, right? And what, I can't remember fucking other word because energy drink, but whatever. Recognize or something like that. So, but she doesn't even know that process, but it's the same thing in customer service, like AER, boom, you go through it, and she made me feel better about it because I went to her. If I harbor that, there's a negativity there, and you may lash out on your kids or something else because you're not getting rid of it. Now, you can have guys you can talk to about it, But I have like Candy's my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
She's my wife. She's my best friend. We talk about every fucking thing. So there is a true vulnerability there. And it's something that she's had to work on quite a bit. I was pretty open and vulnerable just about everything. She wasn't. That's not how she was raised. You know, there was stuff in the past that made her where she didn't open up. And even 12 years later, she didn't fucking open up. When we went through therapy, the therapist was able to help her do that. And she's been about as open as she possibly could be and ever has been. So we've been able to fix a lot of that vulnerability. I'm telling you guys, even if you're not on the brink of divorce, I'm telling you guys, get some fucking therapy because you're going to come out the strongest damn couple ever you've ever been able to be. I'm dead serious, man. Is it a little bit high? For sure. A lot of, check with your job. Sometimes you can get some discounts there, or even have them paid for several sessions. But definitely check on that. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. And the last thing I want to touch on, guys, is talking about being a center of gravity, right? So when there is that moment of panic in your life, that's what I'm talking about. The 4 people in this house. There was a moment when Eric was attacked. We've talked about that before, and there was a panic. And Candy, I walk in the house with the dogs, and Candy's just like she's just in a frozen moment. And I was like, "Get your fucking shit." She told me what happened. I'm like, "The fuck? What are you talking about?" She's like, "Eric, your sister's calling." I'm like, all I did was said, "Go get your shoes on." Took the phone. Like it was a moment of just zen.
Yeah.
Like you just your pupils dilate, and you're like, "It's game time."
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
so I took the phone. I was like, "What the fuck's going on, Allie?" And she's like, and you're like, "We're on our. Where are you at? Where are you at?" All right, click. I didn't even fucking let her. I was click. She told me where she was going. I was like, "Get your shoes on." And Candy's running around like, "Get your shoes on. Go get in the car. I got everything else."
Yeah.
Be that center of gravity.
Yep.
Acknowledge how they're feeling. This is bad. Go your shoes on. We're leaving. Right? And it's the same thing. Like when they're having a bad day, don't have a bad day with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Somebody's got
Yes.
to, I got this.
100%.
Yes.
Be the center of gravity, right? Even if you had a bad day, like talk about it together. Don't unload and be a pile of garbage on each other. Be constructive. Be very, if you're having a bad day, well, let's talk about it, man. Why are you having a bad day? Well, this. Well, why do you think that made the 7 whys, like whatever 5-7 whys that you talk about? I've been using that a lot. Why do you think you had a bad day? Well, this. Well, why do you think that made you, or why did that happen? You think? Well, this, and you just keep breaking it down, and you're like, well, okay, what can we do to prevent that from happening again? Or anything like that. Like have an open, put the fucking phones down, turn the TV off. Shit burns. Like have a good night. You know what I'm saying? Go run and get some ice cream. Dude, we left the other night. Kenny's like, I don't want to do this because if we get in a wreck and die, then the kids will be home by themselves. I'm like, good lord. Let's just go get some ice cream. All right, I'm an outstanding driver. No one's gonna kill us. I'm way too fucking mean to die. Okay, for one. I said we're good. But it's the same thing. Like I was like, Eric's asleep. I'll have Mia just come sit downstairs. We'll grab her something for holding down the fort. Raven's here. No one's coming in. They'll die. We're good. Black shepherds are fucking dog missiles. So we're good. So let's just go get some ice cream. And we just did. We went off, man. We got some ice cream, and it was like we were probably gone 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Awesome, because we got to sit there and really just kind of like, how was your day, and just kind of break it down. Dude, we have a back porch. We can do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You guys have a back porch. And everyone here has a freaking fire pit. Just take the wives outside, burn some wood, and burn some other things, and
Hey,
and just talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Or talk about the week. Unload, do a
Cardboard,
week. Hey, and because it's not something that people do very often. We're so involved in social media and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to do with our brand. I think it's important to unload the wives and just be like, man, how was your week?
Dude, I'll tell you that there's something to what you just said. There's a lot of what you just said.
Thank you for
sure.
unpacking some of that too.
Yeah, really, really good. I hope everybody's listening to that. But I'll tell you, for Tanya and I, we've had those times where some of our most productive conversations have been like, the kids are asleep. Let's go sit on the back porch and sip on some wine or some moonshine or something like that. And yeah, we're kind of redneck. And and just you sit out there and just talk, But to your point, we could be. I will say I could be more vulnerable in those conversations, not in a position of weakness. Like you still have strength, and I appreciate and respect the way that you guys approach things for your family. I still, maybe it's just the old stubborn me or whatever, but like I still feel like that I am my household will go as I go. I think kind of the temperature.
That's okay.
Yeah, the temperature of my house is going to be dependent on my temperature. So I am the thermostat for my household, and I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. I want that responsibility. Like I relish that responsibility, but I can be that and still be vulnerable. Like I can still say, hey, these are the things that I'm dealing with, babe, and her still find strength in me. You know what I mean? Like,
well, there's a respect level there.
Right.
And I get what you're saying. Like when shit, and that's what I'm talking about being the center of gravity. You're talking about, you call it a thermostat.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. When shit hits the fan, my family's looking at me.
Right.
Like,
Always.
how's dad? What's dad doing? You know.
Yep.
Always.
And dude, I'm suiting up. We're going to war, motherfucker. Let's go. You know.
Those are not the times to go, well, I'm kind of dealing with some things.
Exactly.
No.
And that's when you
Deal with that shit later.
That's when you man up,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I agree with what you were saying. And my wife and I, we're a team, just like you guys. I go to her to make sure I'm keeping myself in check because she's got the best awareness, gut feelings. Like she's very.
Let's just be honest. If it wasn't for your wife, you'd get run over by a car.
What? No.
No, I'm just saying, like,
Like
Ashley
when you're chasing
really,
a ball.
Ashley really
No,
is
I'm
like.
not that bad.
But you are great. I'm kind of kidding. But
Yes, I know.
Chris is like, would I really get run over by
No,
this
I
car?
would not.
facetious.
I know you would.
I'm kidding.
I know.
Only if the ball goes in the road.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
If I'm in the game, probably would be because I've hit a fence before trying to catch a ball.
But y'all do. I'm telling
Yeah, I
you from
get
third
you.
party perspective, knowing you for 10 plus years, Ashley is the best partner for you because she
hell
literally will whip your ass into shape. Be like, Chris, focus.
Yeah, and she does, and she
She's the
definitely
neck.
is
She
the
grabs
neck.
your head and she's like, hey.
And I give her all the power to do that. Now in the beginning, I was totally like the man, you know, whatever, and I wouldn't listen to her, I wouldn't apply, and I still have a challenge of. She says I don't listen, but I do understand where she comes from, but I may not make that same decision. So then she calls it not listening. But anyway,
Well, she's right.
I heard,
I was about to
I'm
say.
gonna be
no,
honest.
I heard her, but just because I heard her doesn't mean I have to do what she says me to do.
Well, one thing you have to realize is that if your wife comes to you and she feels some certain way about it, it's true.
Yes,
Like you need to
Right.
acknowledge
9
that
times
the way-
out of 10.
That is reality.
I'm just going to tell you that you have like that's important. Like if she feels that way, you have made her feel
Yes.
that way.
Yep.
Her feelings are true.
Well, that's
Whether
what-
you agree with them or not, she
Right.
feels that way. And
That's a tough one.
yeah. Oh,
That's
hey,
a tough one.
It is.
Yeah, it is
There's
a
There's,
really
egos.
there's no fucking
There's
way you should
egos.
feel that way.
Yeah, exactly.
But you do.
Yeah,
Yes.
But that's a clash of egos at that point. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So yeah, I
And
get that.
now, how I keep myself in check is I have to ask her: Is your gut telling you this? Because no freaking kidding. Every single time she said her gut is telling her this, and if I didn't do that or didn't listen to that, it went wrong. But every time I did, it went right. And I always tell her. And then that was one of the biggest things. I even used that against her. Is when we were having Finn. She was in labor. It wasn't coming the way she was hoping to, and we're 24 hours in, and she's literally like, "We got to do a C-section." She was adamant about not having a C-section, and I went over to her and I said, "Hey, the doctor's saying that we need to do a C-section." And she's like, she was afraid or whatever, and I said, "What you feeling?" She goes, "My gut's telling me I should do it." And I said, "You hadn't steered you wrong now. Why are you not going to listen to it? Let's go."
Always trust your gut.
Always
Yep.
trust your gut. And then those pivotal moments you have, either it would be me or it would be her. Most cases, it's typically, I guess, in thinking back, retrospect, it's been more her in those moments where she needs that strength. I've never really went to my wife for strength, but I have went to her for discernment and to understand, to say, hey, am I making the right decision? Because they're really in tune in that. And oh man, that's like, guys, if you're listening and you're
Their
married,
intuition is
dude,
ridiculous.
check your wife. Typically, their guts tell them, and they're really in tune. So just check it by them if you're in doubt. But yeah, I agree. I agree with what you've said, and everybody. You know, and for me, just being an open book has been a very good tool for me. And Sean just talks about, you know, mostly vulnerability is just facing your fears. You have fears that are in you, like what you were talking about, Cam. You know, you're afraid of the result of what might come if you tell your wife a certain thing, whatever that might be.
I
And-
agree with what you're saying, but I more just don't want to deal with it.
Oh,
like,
okay.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, I
like for
get
me,
it.
like I don't want to deal if it's an argument or an emotional conversation. I'm just like, I just don't feel like it.
Right.
But there's, you know, that other side of it where if somebody might be in a position where, like, if I share too much, it could be bad. I don't really have anything that I don't want my wife to know. It's just sometimes, like, if I'm having that shit day, like what O was talking about, or whatever I'm dealing with, or whatever. I'll tell you the thing that really I have a hard time being vulnerable about is if there is something that maybe she is doing or whatever that is bothering me, I don't want to bring it up. Like, I would rather suppress that and be like, I can deal with it. I can deal with it. Like,
okay.
I don't want to tell her that I don't want her to feel like she's doing something wrong.
Kyle, you're much better than I am.
Yep.
I don't want her
So-
to. No, I just don't. I don't want, because I feel like she puts enough on herself.
Oh.
I don't want her to feel
see
like she's doing something wrong, because then I think that's gonna be in her head, And so I'm kind of like, I'll just deal with whatever it is that's bugging me.
Okay.
It's not healthy necessarily. I'm just saying.
So takeaways, guys, in wrapping up. This has been good stuff. Anybody else have anything else to say? All right. You got to have your foundation, guys. You got to have a foundation to start with. If you don't have a foundation, especially a solid foundation, you're building your house on sand and it's going to fall. And that's biblical. But one question I want to leave you with is, what do you gain for keeping your walls up? Let me ask that again. What are you gaining for keeping your walls up? Now, I know you have to protect your home. You protect the people you care about and you love. But those that are inside those walls, they shouldn't have to be faced with another wall. They're inside your circle. You allowed them. So if they've earned the right to be in your circle, be vulnerable and just see where it goes. Stop letting fear control you in those aspects and just try it. Give it a shot. Who knows? It might work. But we've been excited to be able to give the movement to you guys in this message. We hope that it has helped, and we ask you to continue to follow us, continue to give us feedback, whether you have our cell phones, social media preferably, so that we can share it or at least have the world know that you actually like what you're hearing. And feedback's always good, even if it's constructive. I know I have a lot of things that you could probably construct, or what is it called? Constructive criticize me on. But anyway, welcome to my world. But we appreciate you listening and supporting us, and go do your thing and go become.